If I had to describe Game of Thrones with one word, it would be power.
Uma premiada série que rompeu paradigmas.
It has love and betrayal and greed and murder and sex.
Com a qualidade única da HBO.
It's very dense and it's very multi-layered.
Bad guy story. It's a story where everybody is pursuing their own interest in it.
When you play the Game of Thrones, you win, you die. There is no middle ground.
Estratégias, paixões, lutas, vinganças e dragões. Em Game of Thrones, nada é o que parece.
These books are very adult fare. It's fantasy done for adults.
You think you know them, you think you've got them pegged as what they seemingly are, but they really aren't.
What do you know about warfare?
Nothing. I know people.
And I know that our enemies hate each other almost as much as they hate us.
It's like frenemies, and that's basically what Game of Thrones is. It's all about keeping your friends close but your enemies closer.
He's testing his limits and kind of finding that he doesn't have any limits. Kill all of them, I command it!
E é justamente por isso que conquistou fãs por todo o mundo.
The truth that power corrupts, I think, is very valid. And it shows in this series. You see characters that come into power and how they change.
The Iron Throne is mine, by right. All those that deny that are my foes.
I had no idea how much people enjoyed the show in Latin America, and to be in Mexico and meet so many people that are genuine fans of the show and that really appreciate it. The biggest compliment that we can ask for.
Hola Latin America.
Hola HBO Latin America.
Hola HBO, this is Emilia Clarke from Game of Thrones.
Da nova temporada de Game of Thrones chega com uma enorme expectativa graças à sua ousadia e qualidade indiscutíveis. Esta série original da HBO, criada por D.B. Weiss e David Benioff, promete mais intrigas, grandes surpresas e novos desfechos que mudarão o destino dos Sete Reinos.
Game of Thrones is about power struggles in a fantasy kingdom called Westeros. And it's about the struggle for the Iron Throne, which is the seat of power in this kingdom.
It's a fantasy about 7 kingdoms that are battling for a throne, but for me it's really about what all the best HBO shows are about, which is about family.
I'm going to miss you.
I think the story's intriguing because it involves politics, shifting alliances.
So far it seems to be operating fantastically for people who love fantasy and drama, and a bit of luxury on the way.
It's about power and the pursuit of power and what lengths people will go to achieve that.
There's a war coming, Ned. I don't know when, I don't know who we'll be fighting, but it's coming.
Mas de onde vem o sucesso de Game of Thrones? A resposta é muito complexa. A cabeça por trás de tudo isso é George R.R. Martin, um escritor americano que alcançou a fama na década de 90 ao lançar o primeiro livro da saga, As Crônicas de Fogo e Gelo. E deste livro, A Guerra dos Tronos, a HBO se inspirou para o nome da série.
I've always felt is that the world is a character. You know, you need great characters that people will remember, but people also remember places in fantasy, setting, and The Wall was my effort to come up with one of those.
The White Walkers sleep beneath the ice for thousands of years, and when they wake up...
When they wake up, what?
I hope the wall's high enough.
One of the things that I love about George's fiction, and it reminds me of some of the great writers like Garcia Marquez or Tolstoy, even the minor characters seem like they have a whole life of their own.
When you think you've got it figured, it changes its mind. You follow it and you get excited by it. It's just brilliant. It's a wonderful story.
Trata-se de um drama humano com personagens complexos, ambientado numa terra fantástica.
The entire series is fused with a sense of magic, but there's very little on-stage magic. And I love the way that's handled. I think too much magic can ruin a fantasy.
And winter is coming.
It's a metaphor for a lot of things in the show, and it's not, I don't think it's really about the
the weather so much as it is about these supernatural forces which are rising. It means something's coming and just watch out.
I think the challenge for this is because in the books, the time and places are not specific. We are not actually recreating a specific period in history nor specific cultures.
This is a fantasy series, but that's not the key to the show. The key is the people.
The characters that George created are so rich and so wonderful that it's just so many different ways to flesh them out and explore these templates that he's put down.
1,000 blades. There aren't 1,000 blades. There aren't even 200. I've counted. I'm sure you have.
Esta história épica chegou às mãos da HBO, que entregou o projeto a dois jovens escritores, Benioff e Weiss, para dar andamento a este ambicioso projeto que estreou em 2011.
2.5 hours, even 3 hours for a feature film, is not nearly enough time to get in the complexity of the story that I'm telling. Well, I knew the only way it could really be done is a television miniseries.
We're all living in George's dream. Both Dan and I are novelists ourselves, and so we know what it's like to spend so much time creating your own world and creating your own characters, and how painful it can be when other people take those worlds and do violence to them, the wrong kind of violence to them.
When my agent set up a meeting with D.B. Weiss and David Benioff, and I met with them in Los Angeles, I knew we had the right people.
You know, David and Dan, the writers, are very good at creating very three-dimensional characters. You know, the bad guys turn out to be surprisingly sympathetic and touching, and the good guys turn out to be surprisingly conflicted.
Where are my dragons?
Uma boa série deve se apoiar em grandes talentos.
What's unique about the show is that leans very, very heavily on young actors. Huge amounts of story are put on the shoulders of really, really young actors. And it's not just story, it's very adult story.
It's an ensemble piece. You're so dependent on having good actors to work with. I mean, amazed with the kids. The kids are so good.
Some of those boys will never come back.
Joffrey will. The worst ones always live. I think as the characters grow, we grow too. Because being on this show, you have to learn so much. It's in such short time, and you're working with these experienced actors, and you're just trying to keep up with them.
Em Game of Thrones, existem muitos personagens para escolher. Os quase bons, os maus, os muito maus e os misteriosos. Cada decide a quem se aliar.
I like to see where people's loyalty lie in the show, you know, because some people are behind the Lannisters madly, and some people are behind Daenerys and want her story to take off. I think the one unanimous thing is that everyone wants Joffrey to die. I think that repeats all the time, and I feel the exact same.
Joffrey thinks that he has the right to do these things just because he is the king. So he's the kind of ruler that does what he wants when he wants. He doesn't think things through. He doesn't have any empathy for anybody.
I broke Stannis on the Blackwater.
Because you weren't there to help, Uncle.
My apologies, Your Grace. I was rather busy.
Busy getting captured.
It's nice to, make people hate you.
But in lots of things nowadays, you have black and white, you have good and bad. They have their own agendas, and they will stick by those and do what they think is right, depending on which angle you're looking at.
Is he a villain? No, not completely. He's just a man of principle.
Your mother's dead. Before long, I'll be dead. And you. All of us dead. All of us rotting in the ground. It's the family name that lives on. Do you understand?
He lives in a society which is feudal, where life is cheap.
But Ned is his personality, and he'd rather die than lose his honour and his loyalty and his sense of duty.
So long as I am your king, treason shall never go unpunished. Bring me his head.
O fato do personagem principal não sobreviver nem à primeira temporada só confirma que a série é imprevisível. Aqui ninguém está a salvo e o elenco sabe disso.
Catelyn Stark's death
Richard Madden and Una Chaplin, that moment, I knew it was coming, and it ripped me up inside. I cried.
The Lannisters send their regards.
The show keeps expanding and breathing more deeply. You know, we kill a lot of characters, but every character we kill, we add 2 more.
O fenômeno de Game of Thrones cativou críticas e fãs.
You never quite know where this is going. You don't know which characters are going to live, which ones are going to die. You're not quite sure from episode to episode who's bad, who's good.
They take such risks with what they do, and they don't make it easy on an audience. And I think that's what they do so brilliantly. They will kill off a character and are willing to invest in subtlety and challenge an audience. And I think HBO do that beautifully, and particularly in Game of Thrones, they really push an audience to watch it.
Anyone can be killed.
It's always a surprise to see how this shows, is an impact across the world. The books are big in South America, like they are globally, and that helps things. But it's always nice when people have picked up the books because of the show as well.
That's all the realm is now. Backstabbing and scheming and arse-licking and money-grubbing. Sometimes I don't know what holds it together.
Our marriage.
First I heard of it, I was sitting with Peter Dinklage doing an indie movie, and he went, I'm reading this script, it's kind of amazing. He said, there's a role for my sister.
You'd already heard about the books and the character, I think. And then we met. You know, said no beards, no long beard.
I just never understood why in fantasy dwarves always had beards.
Definitivamente, esta produção original da HBO causou alvoroço mundial.
I am here in Toronto for the launch of Game of Thrones, the exhibition. Fans get to immerse themselves into the world of Westeros. You see the costumes, the armory, the weaponry, and of course, the Iron Throne. The exhibition shall be travelling to 5 worldwide destinations as well, which is very exciting.
E isto inclui seus próprios atores.
Oh my goodness, it's absolutely transformed my life completely. Turned it upside down and inside out in a glorious way. I continually feel like I'm about to wake up from just some lovely dream.
I'm no ordinary woman. My dreams come true.
Oh, you're Jon Snow. You get kind of, usually people come up and they kind of go, I really love the series and I think this about this person, I think this about.
It's one of the best jobs I've ever had. I mean, first of all, you have an amazing group of actors, and everyone involved are so talented, and it's a very, very good feeling to go to work on a Game of Thrones.
We could end this war right now, boy. Choose your weapons, and let's end this here and now.
If we do it your way, Kingslayer, you'd win. We're not doing it your way.
Realizar uma produção tão ambiciosa exigiu grandes recursos, muito planejamento, talento e organização. Grande desafio.
It's unbelievable, really, because when you read a scene in a book and then you get on set and you see it and you maybe think, that's not how I imagined it, it's better, or that is how I imagined it. And it's amazing, especially with all the characters as well.
Every location we go to, every set we have is just breathtaking.
The scale of these sets is it's amazing. It's the kind of work that you expect on a feature film.
The sets on this have always been incredible, and it just helps so much as an actor to have that, because you don't need to do that work. It's all there for you.
I want to fight for the side that fights for the living. Did I come to the right place?
Os cenários, texturas, odores, sabores e até o clima, todos os detalhes foram levados em conta. O resultado, uma série sem igual.
For me as an actor, everything I can touch on set, or I can taste the food and it's different, the set food, or I can smell when I'm in Winterfell, it smells different to being in other parts of the set, and that's so unique.
When you see people's breath, you're really seeing people's breath. When you see icicles coming out of their mustaches and beards, it's real icicles.
They're the best. They're just so good at what they do and incredibly efficient, well organized. They schedule these things right way up front and they stick to their schedules.
When you have a location like this, it's just absolutely stunning. It shows you how vast the landscape is, how big, what distances there are, even though the weather can be an absolute demon.
And that's what's so wonderful about it. What keeps it fresh is that it's such an expansive world and that it's such a rich, endlessly fascinating world that you can lose yourself in it.
A royal wedding is history. The time has come for us all to contemplate our history.
Dos maiores desafios foi rodar em locações em países distantes. Tudo para dar a Game of Thrones ar realista e complexo.
It's a lot of work to schedule everything and figure out how to get all the equipment here and how we can afford it all. But at the end of the day, we'd rather spend the money on the locations rather than on the VFX.
We shoot primarily in Northern Ireland, in around Belfast. We're going to go to Iceland, back to Dubrovnik for King's Landing for a couple of weeks, then Morocco for 3 weeks.
So the amount of things we take into the locations probably exceeds a lot of feature films. The challenge is really is getting a unit of this kind of size into the places that are beautiful. And sometimes the most beautiful places are the most difficult to get to. We're on top of mountains, we're underneath cliffs, in the middle of swamps.
Assim como vemos tropas que saem para conquistar o Trono de Ferro, existe outro exército, a equipe de produção, que faz com que a série crie vida.
The great thing about this show is you really can take from here, from there, things that sort of work for the story. So I've done some sets that I've really, really enjoyed doing.
We just sort of immersed ourselves in museums and books and paintings and sort of Persian and Inuit and, I mean, Mongol, Japanese, everything. And just tried to just take a really broad spectrum and then distill it down and start deciding, well, which area should look in which way, dependent on climate.
The show just has its own momentum, and it just keeps moving and keeps going. And you have, in the construction budget alone, there were 105 different sets that we had money against, and that doesn't include other sets that are obviously being reused.
It's as epic as any film that I've ever shot. We have such an array of action. It's really increased, really has developed into a bigger sets and bigger scenes and bigger crowd.
It starts from the story pages, from the writers, once they've the type of fight it is, and then we'll try and embellish that fight. And then once we've choreographed these fights, we bring the actors in, we teach them these fights with their stunt doubles.
You don't fight with honor.
No, he did.
Tudo deve estar sob controle, e isto é levado a sério.
Within Valyrian, you can hear Latin, you can hear Spanish, you can hear some guttural sounds as well.
When I was first confronted with it, I just went, how am I going to do this? This is so hard. But after repeating it over and over and over again, you do start to pick it up and it becomes a lot more fluent.
It really lends such an authenticity to the world. I forget that they're speaking a made-up language.
Dracarys.
Mais que programa de televisão, Game of Thrones se tornou sucesso cultural, graças a uma fantástica história e orçamento impressionante.
The farther we get to go with it, the more real and lived in the whole universe of Game of Thrones is going to start to seem.
I remember saying, God, if we ever got this far, if we ever actually could make this into a series, and if we ever got far enough to get to these scenes, I could die happy. And here we are, we finally made it.
Oh, you won't hurt me.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
I do know some things. I know I love you.
A espera terminou. A nova temporada está aqui.
The stakes get even higher and loyalties start to be torn apart. The strength of this show is that nothing is ever completely sacred.
This season, the story just gets more intense. Some really juicy mental storylines. And it's just really exciting.
I'm guilty of being a dwarf.
Just really excited about sort of keeping the story going and the momentum, because in this world, nothing goes unanswered, really.
Escolha sua bandeira e junte-se a este fenômeno.
The battle is over. We have won.
Game of Thrones. somente na HBO.
I will answer injustice with justice.